Hello Tina, I'm very happy that you agreed for this interview because right now it's happening. It is the first time that I officially announce the project framework.
Just never go against yourself, and this is how you create change. And every person out there that you admire and that looks very successful has done exactly this. They have stayed on their track of who they are and what they want to do and what world they want to be building for themselves and for the others without changing, even if it was very difficult sometimes.
What is your purpose right now?
My purpose is to create a world of work that is driven by diversity and collaboration. I believe that this is the way to create value that is more pleasant and also more sustainable and also more successful.
Could you please tell us why purpose is so important?
Purpose in German is best translated with the two words, Sinn und Zweck, where Sinn is more the personal meaning and reasoning to do something, the motivation, and Zweck is more the objective of why we are doing this and how this influences the world. And I love thinking about purpose this way. It is the what is driving me, the internal, the motivational part of it, and also how does this make the world a better place, the external, objective reason for something to be.
How did you come up with this concept of purpose-driven entrepreneurship and its importance?
Well, it was a long process. So I started my first company in 2009 in Munich, already more than 10 years ago, where I had just turned a mother myself. I was a computer scientist who was only thinking about technology and internet, and suddenly I was at home with a baby that was adorable and only sleeping all the time, but I couldn't go anywhere. And I was back then very active and did a lot of sports training, and I just thought, okay, it cannot be that I have actually time because she's sleeping and there are actually trainings happening, but I cannot attend them. In 2009 it was the first year when the iPhone had come out, and also the rapid internet DSL was okay-ish available in Munich. The more I surrounded myself with entrepreneurs and with different entrepreneurial mentors and advisors, I realized that we were all focusing only and entirely on how to do things. So on being efficient, being faster, growing more, being, more efficient. And I didn't know what was troubling me about that, but as soon as I understood that the two things, doing the things right, the efficiency, and doing the right things as well, which I called the effect, are different, it started to bother me. It was on the verge of the financial crisis where I realized that on the bottom of this, why this is now becoming important is technology. If you think about on the stock exchange, there have always been brokers, investment brokers, whose job was to curate good businesses. So they were picking investments, not only based on their KPIs, on how efficient they are, but also on their business purpose. Are they doing good for the company, for the country, for the society around them? The effect of the business. And when software emerged, automated trading systems came into place that replaced the person, the broker, with algorithms. And the algorithms were so efficient that we now know, by being optimized for short-term gains, they not only did not add value to businesses, but in fact, we know today, in many cases, they drained out almost the entire value that businesses had created, not only for society, but for the business owners and company employees as well. And this whole concept of technology is so efficient that it's changing the effect of the business is not new. So Klaus Schwab when he founded the World Economic Forum, he founded it for this reason. He said, we have to start being more sustainable and more long-term oriented, and we need a place to discuss how business can not only be for profit, but also can be contributing to society. And today I think the topic is emerging for several reasons. The one is we people have changed. There are even younger people than us growing up with new culture, with new values, who want to do meaningful jobs, who in a world that is very automated are looking for purpose in what they are doing. We understand that everything that we do, the business and our personal decisions somehow contribute to the world, also negatively. And with technology, this contribution is exponential. And exponential means very quick and very fast, at a very rapid scale.
You mentioned that there are a lot of people right now that are looking to do something good, something with purpose. What would be your advice? What first step they should take? What was your first conscious step into entrepreneurship?
I told you about my first entrepreneurial endeavor. It was not a conscious one, I believe. I was just, go with the flow and trying to do whatever people were telling me to do, which was on the one hand side easy because there is no pressure on performing. On the other hand side, I think not very beneficial because there are quite a lot of mentors and people smarter and older than you that sometimes give you completely opposite advices, or without having a stake in your company, have very strong opinions about where you should be doing and what you should be striving for.
This is the reality for many future founders.
Absolutely.
There are so many sources right now that they really don't know where to start and how to orient themselves around among this plethora of means available. There is money available, funds, venture capital, private equity, angels, different contests. It's a lot of opportunities.
Yes.
So how should they take the first step?
I believe the only way to really have impact is to sustain in doing whatever you're doing. You cannot learn to play the piano by trying it 3 times. You cannot have and grow a successful company by just doing some A/B tests and earning some awards. For everything you want to do, be it raising a child or growing a nice garden or whatever, you need to sustain doing this for a longer time than you expect, and then other people will do it. And the only way to sustain doing something is to be passionate about it. And passion is just another word that people don't understand, but I believe that there is a very simple definition. They say the third law of mechanics, the Newton law, is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if you want to change the world, if you make an action and if you really try to change it, if you have an impact, then you will experience this opposite reaction. And the one thing that makes you sustain and not change and say, oh, I didn't want this opposite reaction, I'll try doing something else because it's
I'll quit.
Or I'll quit because it's a world full of opportunities, right? The only way to say, no, this is more important than the pain, than the loss, than the risk. And this is why for me passion or the personal part of purpose is what you cannot be with. It's a question that I always start with, what you cannot be with. And
is this your definition for passion? The personal thing for purpose?
Yes, this is the thing that you so much cannot be with that you have to get active about it. When I started realizing all that, I didn't know where it is leading to. So I started writing the book particularly to answer the question for myself. So it was very purpose-driven. It was not, to get rich or whatever. It was just, okay, let me find a way to order this for myself because I need to continue. I couldn't be with the house. And then I realized what I cannot be with. And this is really the lack of diversity at the workplace, the lack of collaboration. As a former entrepreneur, I had my company for 4 years and then I went back to work, partly because I turned mother for the second time and it was just so much going on. So I went back and worked for 5 years. And as an entrepreneur coming from the startup scene where everyone is giving each other advice all the time, going back to work where nobody's talking to anyone else, and where you are anchored to your team within a few weeks, and then every other person that you meet from the company is considered betrayal to your own team, and where information is kept to yourself as a means of power and not shared. I was so alarmed by this, so I decided I cannot be with this, partly also because of the challenges that we need to tackle together globally with collective intelligence, with more power. And I decided that I want to work for more diversity in the workspace. And I have experienced this myself as a woman from abroad, as an immigrant, as a woman in tech, also minority, woman in research afterwards, then as a female founder, and then as a founder in a corporate environment. I was really young and always in the minority. And I think, wow, it's actually, I'm not an exception. It's actually everyone around me is a minority somehow, and we need to embrace the beauty of those different destinies and skills and strengths. And people are not just their, CV and LinkedIn profile. People have a lot to offer to each other. And this was the thing I couldn't be with, the lack of this at work and the lack of purpose. So I decided to go and start my own company, Mentessa. And I can tell you it's a very, very conscious process. So everything we do is really bound to what we are doing it, why we're doing it for ourselves, but also how do we do the world a better place.
So this was your attempt to fight the status quo, not just run away from it and find something else, but really bring the solution alongside.
Yes.
What is Mentessa?
Mentessa is a mobile-first community for mentorship and know-how exchange at work. We realized that asking for help at work or in life is actually very, very difficult. It's a skill that very, very few people can. Those who can are successful and thriving, be it at work or personally. Those who can't really struggle. And asking for help is difficult because it depends on three things. It depends on the personal background of the person, on their culture. It depends on their soft skills, and it also depends on their, character. So living and working in an ever more diverse workplace, like today we have 5 different generations for the first time in human history working hand in hand together at the workplace. The baby boomers are still there and the Gen Zs are coming, and they all have different values, different ways of communicating, different tools. So the diversity of attitudes and processes and expectations is so complex that no single person can, look through it only successfully. I believe that today is even more difficult to ask for help the right way, because it's just everyone is different and you cannot expect anything anymore. So what we're trying to do is help people with technology to ask and to find, identify and ask the right person at the right time to help them.
So Mentessa enables this better networking and relationships within the workforce, within our own teams, and people that basically we meet every day in the office, but we don't probably spend enough time and effort to bond with them and to ask them questions.
This is such a great way to tell it. Yes. And also do it targetedly, on demand, on purpose.
Well, I cannot help but ask, because now everyone is talking about the coronavirus. And with this outbreak, of course, the first question in mind is related to health, and it is important that we all stay healthy. But the next greatly impacted thing is economy and the way we function at work, in the office. It's probably the biggest challenge for employers, how to bring their employees together, but not physically. So do you think Mentessa could offer such help in this situation?
Well, we are a very young company, and when we started we didn't think of pandemic spreads. But of course, working virtually and through distance with each other will become more and more important, with the diversity, with the urbanizations of our cities, and also with the ability of new technology to connect people. So yes, I believe we can play a role in this, and still it's a very serious matter that won't be solved only with one tool or one policy. I hope it really turns out less worrisome than we are now worried about.
To come back to purpose, what do you think we as society should do to foster more purpose-driven actions?
This is the question of our questions, right? So
That's true.
if I knew the answer to these questions, my next book would be a bestseller.
Are you planning a next book?
Of course I am. I cannot be without writing. And long time I thought, no, only the writers write. But I really think that we as society should embrace more what is urging in us, in each and every one of us individually. I have always been writing. I just never took it seriously because it was easier for me than other stuff. Every second, every minute, every day, every meeting, every collaboration is important, and they all generate value. And I would like to tell you a story I love because it influences what has changed in the world and how today it's a little bit different. When I was 7, my mom brought me a computer. She was very innovative for her time and for her gender and everything. So she brought me a computer as a present, and she said, you know what, there are two types of people in this world. There are builders and consumers. And then she paused and looked me into the eyes. I know it sounds scary, but she was a psychologist, so it's not that bad. I was used to it.
Sense.
Yes, yeah. And she said, which one do you want to belong to? It was the moment when I decided I am a builder. And I will be building as much as I can, and I started building all the types of things like games for DOS on this computer without internet. Then I built a newspaper for high school with a drag and drop interface. And then I came to Munich and built my first company. And then throughout this whole process of how technology is changing our collaboration and actually is so efficient that it changes the effect, I realized that my mother's theory was not right anymore, because today everyone is a builder. So with every click, with every like, with every purchase that you're doing in a global connected world, you are deciding how people work, how are the laws, what is the world you're creating. So today there is no such passive comfort as, oh, it's somebody else's job. Today we are all into it together. So to sum up, a way for a more purpose-driven society and work is just to embrace a very conscious, responsible approach and not go against yourself by thinking that everybody could write or everybody could record such a nice podcast or come up with a framework or whatever it is that is your passion.
True, everything is possible. You talk so much about diversity. Do you think that purpose is female?
Now I know you've read my book. Yes, because the first time when I had this idea of, big heart ventures and I want to write about purpose in entrepreneurship, it was not omnipresent as it is today. People were looking at me and like, okay, of course, a woman would come up with something like this. It's a social topic, it's for the others. And it's totally different than business, because business is about money and women are always about, all those cliches. And then somebody said, oh, it's a female thing to be thinking about this. And then this was the moment when I decided to write this book, because this is exactly the prejudices and the limiting beliefs that we have to get rid of in our society. That, for example, doing good and doing well are two things that cannot belong together. And one thing that really helps against this is to just look for examples in your environment, or we have social media and the whole world is connected. We have more information than ever possible. Just find an example of one person that is happy and successful at the same time. And then there is this black swan, and I can be this too.
You told me that last year only you were to 51 readings of your book, right?
Not readings, but 51 keynotes I gave in total.
You had the chance to talk to a lot of people. Did you learn also a very interesting story? Someone who told you they got inspired by your book, or who were one of these benchmarks and good examples that you mentioned before?
Actually, doing things on purpose, I pretty much regretted that you have to write a book to get to meet all those people, to the readings and the keynotes afterwards, because after just 2 events you know so much more about the topic. So I'm really happy that a lot of people discussed with me this, and I learned so much about it. I don't think that this book can change anyone's life. I hope to, but I have talked to many people that said, oh, I now want to try this, including my mom. She's already in an age where her friends are giving up work for, more leisure, but she doesn't want to do it. And she said, oh, after reading this book, I decided to go on and try growing the business again, not just sustaining it. Yeah, and it was impressive. What made me very, very happy.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It was incredibly insightful. I always learn something new. And this was our official announcement of the project framework, the very first framework that is aimed at future founders, those of you who have the potential to build something meaningful and bring a business to our lives that is going to make an impact and be really, really sustainable over time and meaningful to all of us. And I believe this is each and every one of you. So don't be scared, don't be procrastinating, don't be wondering if you should do it. Take the first step, start now, use the framework, ask for help, ask your friends, and just go on. We believe in you.
Yes, we do.
We should really start. We shouldn't strive for perfection. We shouldn't beat ourselves up that everything that we create is not 100% perfect, 100% fit for social media, for sharing, for discussing with other people. Just talk to people, spread the message as I talk now with Tina. And I am nervous, I am freaking out a little bit because it is the first time that I talk about the project framework. But it is happening. Now it is official and I have no excuse but to pursue and to try to help other founders, future founders, people with ideas, people that want to bring something meaningful and make it happen. I would like to help, so reach out to both of us.
Yes.
And let's have this discussion because we need more of good ideas happening and being out there. So let's do it.
Amazing.
Awesome.